There just aren't that many options available. Hey, I am Chuck the Bureaucrat, and Major Carter has been sitting on this policy review board for about a month or so. And the working group is getting ready to take their recommendations to a council of colonels before they go on to the general officers. Now, General McNulty is really interested in this policy, but Colonel Thompson is going to have Gary cover the Council of Colonels because he's got a lot more background on this issue. So Carter is walking Gary through the slides, explaining the possible options, laying out how different stakeholders feel about each option. If you remember, Major Carter got an earful from Sherry for not providing General McNulty with an understanding of how the different stakeholders felt. Anyways, Gary's just flipping through the slides, not even really listening, and he keeps muttering, toilet paper, and then he tosses the slide deck aside and he says, well, this is just a flip and go. Carter is visibly confused. What? So Gary says, there's certain decisions that have a limited number of options. They're like toilet paper rolls. There's only 2 ways you can hang them. You might wrangle around until you find some crazy alternative, but the good options never really change. Carter says, yeah, so it's just a matter of picking the right option and sticking with it. Gary shakes his head and says, yeah, in a lot of cases, there's no universally right policy. No matter which option you pick, somebody ends up disadvantaged. My favorite example of this is the question of whether sergeants should be trained before their promotion board or after they get selected for promotion. You can make some pretty powerful principle-based arguments one way or the other. But look at this. If you set the policy so that they need training before going to the board, there's going to be a group of people who can't get training seats for one reason or another, and so they can't compete for promotion. Over time, that group gets bigger and more vocal, and they attract attention and build a coalition until finally the policy gets flipped. Now, people have to get selected for promotion before going to training, and that large vocal group starts to dwindle, but a new disadvantaged group starts to form. See, these guys didn't exist before the policy change, so they didn't have a coalition, but as they grow in numbers, they grow in representation until you hit a tipping point, and you gotta flip the policy back. There's no universally right policy that doesn't create a problem, so our job is more about managing the flipping in a way that's responsible. What's that mean for this policy? Says Carter, pointing at the slides. I know General McNulty doesn't want the current policy to change. There's good reasons to stick with what we've got, but he's going against the tide and he's eventually going to lose. But that puts him in a good negotiation position to dictate how the policy changes. I'm going to recommend that he support the policy change based on 2 conditions. First, we phase in the change to give people 6 to 8 months of warning that the rule is going to change. And second, the directive changing the policy should explicitly state that in 18 to 24 months we return to the current policy. Don't tell anybody about this yet. I'll broach it with him this afternoon and get his guidance. Then, based on what he says, I'll float whatever he supports at the Council of Colonels like it's my idea, something I just came up with, and see how they take it. Then we'll decide the next step. I'll probably have you run around and coordinate some draft language, but don't do anything until I see what the response is. Major Carter suddenly feels a lot less nervous about the meeting and says, okay. And Gary says, good. Now, get with Riley and go over how I like to do talking points, because we're probably going to have to put some together soon.